I'm Sam Thompson. I'm from Illinois. Hold your judgments, as we all know good and well that Illinois is not your first choice when it comes to conservation and hunting, but as a hunting veteran, well, actually 3-year novice, I made it my mission to not only learn as much as I can about hunting locally, but also make it my mission to conserve the resources that so many have forgotten exist. Although there are a few different animals that you can hunt in Illinois, my favorite is upland hunting for ringneck pheasants. I was one of the few country boys that never got an introduction to hunting when I was young. That status quo held true until 2016 when a friend invited me to hunt with him for pheasant. I didn't know anything about hunting, let alone that it was opening day. After trekking through 100+ acres of wet, cold CRP, my boots and pants soaked like I stepped in your neighbor's swimming pool, a great multi-man Illinois limit followed the hunt after we witnessed 20 or more pheasants of both sex. I was hooked. I even bought my first hunting dog, Ivy. But with enjoying to hunt this live animal version of sporting clays came the desire and need to educate myself more and more. Why do I rarely see these birds? How come no one talks about them? It was through the next year that I would learn just how impacted the pheasant population really was. Not all from hunting, but also in a way from lack of hunting. I've been blessed with great friends that have great land to hunt wild pheasant, but if the weekend gets slow, I'll pick up a controlled hunt to keep the dog active and give me something to fry in the kitchen. But the common consensus in Illinois has always been that there is nowhere to hunt pheasant. It's true there is a significant lack of habitat, but that is changing. I was pleased this year to watch a friend pull his first rooster off of his own CRP plot. Why? Because of habitat. I might mention that this was the first time his land had been hunted since he took ownership and enrolled it in CRP. He took the time and used the resources available to improve habitat. And it's working. So what about public access? Yes, it exists. Some have good pheasant habitat and some don't. You just have to be willing to put in the effort. Thomas Jefferson said that he found that the harder he worked, the more luck he seemed to find. Well, I'm the guy who wants more luck, so I'm definitely going to work a little harder. I'm nearing the end of the Illinois pheasant season, late December. The one thing I hadn't done yet this year was hunt public land. So on a Thursday evening, I decided to load up the truck and prepare to hunt. I wake up at 5:30 the next morning and start the process. I didn't check the weather forecast the night before, so I wake up to 20-degree weather with winds blowing between 15 and 20 miles an hour, and it's spitting rain. Not many guys would continue in this, but I'm not many guys. This is when I know I'll have the most luck.
Alright, so just got in the truck, put the dog in the truck, and we're going to go try some public land today. You never know what you're going to find, especially in Illinois with public land. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes you just have to really work at it, sometimes you don't even see anything. This piece of land that I'm going to is a piece of land that I tried a couple years ago. Walked it and saw like one quail, no pheasant. But needed to get out today, and so jumped up here at 5:30 and decided I would go ahead and try this.
So I settle in and I make the 1-hour drive. My plan is to get there 30 minutes before legal shooting time to just sit and survey the area. I have finally arrived, and the only sound is the wind whistling by. Not another soul to be seen. Now I sit and wait for shooting time.
Okay, so we just showed up on site on this public land that I'm hunting today. One of the important things that you got to remember when you're doing your research and stuff like that for public land is knowing the requirements. I believe this land used to be, you could start hunting at 8 o'clock. Upon researching it this week, it goes by statewide hours, which is sunrise to sunset. The sunrise today is going to be right around 7:20, 7:25. Somewhere in there. I'm going to look it up here in a second to see exactly what it is. So I'm about half an hour early, but I like to get here early, not necessarily to stake my plot, but I like to see if I hear any roosters crowing. I like to see if there's any activity, if I see any birds moving, and then this also lets me know if other hunters are already here, or if they show up in the meantime. I can usually coordinate with them because this land is pretty big. So The other thing you got to think about when you're going to be hunting public land is obviously abiding by the rules. Now, a lot of people struggle. They say there's no birds in Illinois, there's no birds in Illinois, and I'm hoping to prove them wrong today by showing them, even on public land, that I can find some birds. So we're going to hopefully do that. Now, with Illinois, even though it is a walk-on land, you have to still get what's called the windshield card, which is a free permit that you download from DNR's website. Put in your hunter information and it'll let you print it right off. You print it off and you keep it in your windshield, and you document when you hunt and what you got, and then you have to report it regardless if you hunt it or not. You have to report it by, I think, somewhere in mid-February.
This land is a little tough. With several large bodies of water, this 300-acre plot's prime habitat sits mostly on the north side. It's a good hike through the hills. This used to be an old strip mine, a great place for birds, but not a great place for those who hate walking. I load my gun and let the dog lead. Usually pheasant hunting is preferred in groups, pushing the fields from one end to the other in one endless motion, then turning and repeating the process. Today, I'm doing things a bit differently. I'm hunting across and then into the wind. I set myself up for a direction, but then I let the dog really guide me. She can smell these birds and I can't, but I can shoot these birds and she can't. It takes me about 25 minutes to make my way around to the other side where the largest amount of habitat exists. I begin walking, and within seconds, the dog is on point. I walk in to flush, and nothing. Then we keep walking, and finally a hen flushes. It's about 15 yards ahead of where the dog had pointed previously. Did the bird move? Possibly, but I felt that these conditions that the dog's nose was working just fine. And it proved itself. The dog's tail moving 100 miles an hour and doing very nice zigzags across the field proved successful at the end of the first pass.
All right, so we kicked up a couple hens way back there. We just went ahead and kept pressuring, and got my first wild rooster, Upland 2018.
By this time we had seen 2 hens and then this rooster. We turned, moved down, and started back with the wind. At this point, flushing 3 more hens and then another rooster. These birds were going nuts. With being at limit, I decided to not jinx this land and call it a day. Mind you, I've not even walked half of the land. I start walking down the path back to the truck, and the dog turns and goes on point. Another rooster comes out, and then a hen. At this point, I'm deciding to film these points because you know why? I'm proving something that everyone thinks doesn't exist. Yes, there are birds in Illinois. Yes, there is public access. And yes, there is habitat. And it works. I don't like to let meat go to waste, so now's when I gotta do the dirty work, is after the hunt. A week passes and I decide to revisit the same public land. I take the same approach, the same dog, same everything. The only difference today is that the weather is clear and the wind is minimal. And although my plan was to get deeper into the field away from obvious pressured areas, the birds start popping. The first, a rooster that I missed cleanly. But as I kept on, it was almost a repeat of the previous week. I got my limit, saw another rooster, and a total of 9 pheasants again.
It's working. I'm seeing roosters. I'm seeing, based on what I'm walking, I'm seeing 5 or 6 hens. And for a 300-acre plot by myself and a dog, that's really good. You just can't beat it. It looks phenomenal. So here, let's take a look at this. No bird. Was that not picture perfect? That was just me walking back to the truck, talking to you. The dog goes on point and we've flushed another hen. I'm like right next to the path. I'm barely walking in. I'm just letting the dog exercise. Like I'm out of the thick of it. It's incredible. Habitat works.
Both trips out here, I've told my wife to not plan for me to return until the afternoon, but both times I was home before noon. Nothing is greater. I would have been happy to have just seen birds. Getting the chance to shoot them is a happy bonus. The best moments were certainly the first thoughts when I realized that this public land, late in the season, still had birds. Where there's habitat, there's birds. I decided to hunt on the final Saturday just before the end of the season. The temperature is significantly warmer. But again, this land was one I had yet to visit.
All right, so doing my last day of the 2018-2019 upland hunting, pheasant hunting, and yeah, I mean, it's another gorgeous day, this is a piece of land that it's a public accessible land that I haven't got to touch yet this year, and one of the things I wanted to talk about is habitat. Everybody says there's not enough habitat in Illinois, which there's not. I agree, there's not enough habitat. But is there habitat? Yes. A lot of people say there's no wild birds, there's no hunting in Illinois. I think I've completely already proven that wrong between any private hunts that I've done this year and the couple things that I documented on public land already over the last couple weeks. Yeah, and actually this land right here behind me, this land right here, it's a big plot, but this specific area that I'm looking at right now, that was that needed a prescribed burn last year, and a lot of people threw a fit about how they were doing a prescribed burn at the end of the season. But look at it now. I mean, it's gorgeous. Habitat is exactly what you need. Where there's habitat, there's birds. It may not take, it may not be the first year, but like the public land that I was on, it's got newer seedings, and it's great this year. What I consider great for one person and a dog hunting. And so you give it another year, maybe two, and it'll be amazing. It'll be just incredible. So if this is what this looks like after 1 year, imagine what it's going to look like in 2 years or 3 years. This is great. This is very well managed habitat. I'm looking forward to walking it today.
To my surprise, I pulled a rooster in the first 15 minutes, but that's where my season will end. I take the beautiful day and walk about 5 miles to see a couple more hens, breathe in the fresh air, and enjoy the scenery. At this point, I couldn't have asked for a better season than this one for myself. My hopes stay positive with the realization that habitat, whether it's public or private land, works. My realization also sits on the fact that although we don't like to have to hunt public land with other hunters, we need more hunters, so that in reality, they take a position for conservation and habitat. And I hope through my presentation of hunting that people will take the time to evaluate the positives of why conservation and habitat is so important.